make sure that we're explaining to people and helping them to see how everything works, how all the operations work. The important thing, obviously, is that you see your child coming home with learning, with a love for Christ and a love for our faith. You see, hopefully, that your children are becoming better citizens, better humans, if you will, and how we can all be a part of that. But I want you to have an understanding of what goes on the back end of this as well. So we are going to start with a small presentation about our school finances. And I have to say that this would not be possible without Keith Wolf and Ileana Del Toro. Ileana is the president of the school board and Keith is the past president. And I always feel like they are also the masterminds behind this. So I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Danielle, will you enable that? If you go down to that green button. Oops, not yours. If you go down, Danielle, on the green arrow on your Zoom or on your security settings, it'll allow me to share, or you'll allow a participant to share. Do you see it? Okay, hold on one second.
I knew we were going to have this problem. Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. Yes. It just shows my screens. Okay.
Okay, Danielle, I sent it and it's the PDF one. So while Danielle's opening that up, I'm going to just kind of talk through some of the things for you, and then you'll be able to see it on the slide in a minute. Just a little bit of information about where our admissions lies right now and what's going on. Our current enrollment is 489 students, and that's a little bit less than what we're accustomed to. Normally, our school year has about 500 students in there. So we are a little lower this year than normal. And our retention rate for this last year was 88%. Perfect, Danielle.
Sorry about that.
That's a-okay. So our retention for this year was 88%, which is a little bit lower than what we're accustomed to. However, it's right in line with what all private schools were experiencing this last year. So normally our retention rate hovers around the 96% mark. This year we learned from the Texas Private School Association that most private schools had anywhere from an 8 to 15% decrease in enrollment. And so that would go along with ours. We didn't have quite that much of a decline, but we did have more turnover than we certainly expected. The good news is applications for the 21-22 school year were due Monday on February 1st, and currently we have 154 applications, which is a fabulous amount. The good news is that in the classes that have some openings, we'll be able to fill those, but in some of the other classes, it's going to be a little bit rougher. So as with all things, you certainly don't have an even Steven on applications. So for instance, in pre-K3, we have 36 spots, but we have more than 70 something applications. in kindergarten or in 6th grade, we have 1 spot and we have 16 applicants for that 1 spot. So in those ways, those are the ones that make it a little bit more difficult to fill. But then at the same time, we've got some grades where we may have 5 openings and we only have 1 applicant. So our goal is to get ourselves back up to 500, but at the same time, we want to be realistic about, we don't really know what's going into parents' decisions right now as they choose schools for their children. A lot of what we're seeing from the students who are applying is their parents are frustrated that their children have not been back to a school campus since almost a year ago. So it's a little surprising to me when I hear how many students still are not back in person. And I forget that other people are going through that. So we are seeing kind of an uptick in families that are saying, I just have to have my child, in person-to-person school. So we'll see where it goes from there, but we're definitely excited about the number of applicants that we had for this next school year. So Danielle, if you'll go on to the next screen. This one is really, this is one of Keith's charts, and I think it's a great one. It really just kind of explains where we hover for revenues and expenses. And you can see over the last 3 years, we're pretty much around the point that our tuition covers 85% of our expenses. And that kind of moves and ebbs and flows a little bit, but for the most part, it's about 85%. And so that top bar, the 10 to 15% bar up there, is telling you the amount of money that we need to come up with to finish paying for the rest of our expenses. This year, we're a little bit more lopsided than we have been in the past, and that's because of our enrollment. So when our enrollment went down, obviously we had less revenue come in, but I wish I could say our expenses went down, and they did not. We have had to have, as you know, right? We had to pay for some extra hands on deck to help keep the campus clean and sanitized. We've had to purchase a number of things in order to keep the campus safe. And so unfortunately, it's not a one-for-one, that as our enrollment went down, our expenses went down too. That did not happen at all. So this year we are kind of expecting that we need to raise about 15% again of the difference between what the tuition brings in. Now, I think we're very blessed here at St. Anne's. We do have some reserves that we can absolutely, take from if we need to. We were also the recipient of the first PPP grant, or loan, I should say that. Don't let me say grant, because we don't know yet that ours has been forgiven. So we've done all the homework on it. We've done the legwork. We've submitted for forgiveness on our PPP loan, but we just haven't received it back. So that PPP loan was instrumental in helping us to finish out this last school year, and we were able to do some things that I don't know that we would have been able to do otherwise. But now that's really where our prayers are at, is that we receive forgiveness on that, which they believe we should. And then that will help us so that we don't have to dip into reserves nearly as much. I would say probably one of my biggest concerns for the year is that we might not be in a place where we can put any money away in reserves this year. But we talk about, I'm a firm believer, my mom and dad taught me that your reserves and your savings accounts are for rainy days. And if this isn't a rainy day, I don't know what is. So I feel like we have every right to dip into that if that's what we need to do. And that's how we're going to continue to keep the kids safe, right? We have to have enough coverage. And if that means we have to hire more subs or we have to have more police officers to help us with carpool, then we do it, because that's the important part. Unfortunately, what I don't want to do is put this all on Danielle's back, that she's responsible for raising the other 15%. Although if anybody can do it, it's certainly her. But that's not fair for her to be left with it all. So we try to do how we can do this together to make sure that we're okay. But as you can see, just so you know, we operate on a little bit more than a $5 million budget, which is great. We've been hovering around that number for quite a while now, and it really does have a lot to do with our admissions on how much more. So if you think about it, one of the best things that the finance committee taught me is that for every student over budget that we are, so if our budget is 485 and we have 486, that's $10,000 more basically in our budget to help us meet those expenses. So it's so important to us to have a full campus on there. I do want to kind of throw caution here, because some people have asked me if we can go back. There was a time that we were at, I want to say 512, 515 students. And I would say when we were there, we couldn't breathe. It was very much over capacity at that point. So 500, 505 is that kind of sweet spot number for me, where I feel like the teachers are, cramped with 27, 28 kids in their class. We can move around. We have enough green space, all of those things. But much more than that, when you start to get to 19 kids in a pre-K classroom, it's just too much. They don't have any space to live, to move in there. And the truth is that pre-K is our best bet for going over, that's where we have the most amount of applicants, that we could staff more rooms or we could hold more people, but we just want to be very cautious about that. Because I really believe early childhood in particular, they thrive in a small group setting where they've got some great individualized attention and are really learning how to move past parallel play into those social skills that are going to help them grow and be ready for, the rigors of an elementary classroom where you're sitting in a desk and you're learning, in that way. We know that our early childhood students really need to be in a play-based environment. So moving on to the next one. This is just a real high-level overview of the other support that we receive that help make up that 15%. And we did a 3-year average because using last year's numbers probably isn't totally fair in all of this. So for the last, 15 years, I think, we have received a $200,000 subsidy from the parish. The money that the foundation raises from the gala, they give us $150,000 of that. So we have that. And then if you look at the grant, if you look at the chart, you can see the two kind of white areas. They're both white because I want you to know that those two go together. So the foundation, the money from the gala is the $150,000. And then you'll see on the other side, there is the bourse and the scholarships. That totals $135,000 a year. And the foundation manages that. And so they have been wonderful about giving us that. Mrs. Heimbinder has been just a huge supporter with us with the bourse. That's about $110,000 a year. And then it's about $30,000 a year in scholarships for students. And those are normally academic or service-based scholarships. So students, they don't apply for them, but we take a look at the criteria and see which students meet that criteria. And then we'll go on to Fiesta. Fiesta is about 20% of our fundraising money in there, and the average has been about $155,000. We didn't put that much. We didn't assume we would make that much this year because we don't even know what we're going to do with Fiesta yet. The leadership committee on that has some great ideas, and we're going to look more into that. But I do think on a realistic sense, it's possible we have tapped out at the top of Fiesta. And that will probably be about the ceiling at which we stay. We get a great deal of sponsorships, and then the rest of the money is really from raffle ticket sales. So that's about $155,000 a year. I want to say this year we put in our budget maybe half of that we expected to do something that would get us at least half of that. And then the last thing, which is the most important thing at this point, is the annual fund. And that 3-year average has been about $170,000, which it is a great amount. In the, I think, 5 years that we have owned the annual fund, because the annual fund didn't used to fall under the school, but in those 5 years that we've had it, it has come up significantly, both in participation and in dollar amounts. So I'm super pleased to say that the faculty and staff are always hovering right around the 100% mark. Our PTO board, our school board, is always a great supporter of it. This is one that we really would love to see the parent participation go up in, because it's the one where the most amount of money comes right back to the school to take care of things. So that's, yeah, Danielle says the annual fund has tremendous potential for growth, unlike Fiesta. Totally agree with that statement. I think we always want to be careful about event-based fundraising, because there's always a ceiling. But when you're asking people to really get into the spirit of philanthropy and to support the mission of the school, I don't think there's a ceiling on that. So just kind of a good overview for you. That was about $760,000 worth of worth of non-tuition based revenue that we come up with. Kind of an aside, but just so you know what's going on for us this school year, the church is obviously struggling with COVID. And so we're at a point right now where they have told us they are not certain if they will be able to meet the rest of their obligation to us for this school year. So as we go forward, that's something we're looking at. We have in our budget that we will receive the full $200,000. At this point, we just don't know if we will. So it's kind of a day-by-day touch and go scenario, as we certainly hope and want to do everything we can as well to make sure that the church is doing well. Because when the church does well, obviously they can support us, and we want that to continue as well. Okay. Danielle, am I missing anything, or am I going right? Have I missed any questions, or?
I don't believe so. I think that, like you said, with the tremendous potential for growth for the annual fund, if we continue to increase that number, it also puts us into position to, I think, solicit third-party grants, basically. If we have 100% participation from our community, the entire campus, that's a necessity for submitting grant proposals and whatnot. And we haven't necessarily had the luxury of applying. I mean, we could hire a grant writer dedicated to looking for, project-based grants, et cetera. So the sky's the limit for that, for the annual fund. And when you compare the success of our counterpart schools like St. Michael's, St. Cecilia's, et cetera, every year they're raising at least no less than $500,000 in their annual fund. And we should be there because we've been in existence longer than they have for 90 years. So we've got that much more of a constituent base. So I really want to reinforce the incredible job that the annual fund does to enable our faculty and staff and our students, and of course you all, to enhance our academic experience.
Thank you. So the next slide, we lovingly call at school board the V chart. One, because it makes a pretty V, and two, because it was designed by Keith Wolf. And so we want to make sure to honor it. He hasn't put his trademark on it yet, but I'm expecting that to happen soon. And this is Keith's chart that he made for himself when his kids were very young. And he wanted you to be able to see what would happen to tuition if by the time if you started your child here, for instance, if your child was an 8th grader, right? Or I always struggle with this. Let's say that tuition is 10.8, which it is for an 8th grader. But if you walk yourself, like if you had a pre-K 3, if we continue to raise tuition at anywhere between a 3 and 6% increase every year, then you could end up paying closer to $19,500 a year by the time your child who was in pre-K 3 made it to 8th grade. So I hope that made sense. What I always take away from this chart is that the more the annual fund and those non-tuition revenue dollars can support the school, the less amount of speed we have to use to raise tuition. So the diocesan guidelines are that we need to raise tuition starting at a minimum of 3% every year. And some years we've been able, really for the past few years, we've been able to keep at that amount. This year we raised 5% in order to help us. We have to have a zero budget, and that was the way we could do it for this year. Now, granted, if more money comes in from the annual fund, or more money comes in, if we really can bank on that, the parish is going to give us $200,000, or if the foundation decides to give us more from their gala, then those would be ways in which we don't have to increase tuition quite as fast. But what I think has been really hard on the finance committee as of late has been that our expenses are rising quickly, because we have to take care of COVID things, and because we have to pay for extra cleaning and sanitation. And then with our enrollment down, we weren't able to meet those numbers. So it's really, I kind of think of it, it's more like a 4-prong approach than a 2-1, right? We have to keep admissions at a steady level. We want to be able to keep our expenses down as much as we can without sacrificing anything. And we also want our tuition or our non-tuition revenue dollars to help really bridge that gap. And the more it can bridge the gap, the less we have to do with tuition. And now that I'm saying that, I feel like I only said 3 prongs. And I don't know if I did, or if I just can't remember what the 4th one is right now. So sorry if I had a moment there. So that's kind of a good way of looking at what tuition escalation does and how it happens. I did reach out to our other similar schools yesterday to kind of find out what their tuition increases were looking like, and they were all over the board. So, we had a couple that were at 2%, but they had done a 10% hike last year. And then there were some others that were closer to us, at a 4, 4.5, 5. I did see one that was a 10% hike, and I hope none of you will be going there, because I wouldn't want that for anyone. I don't want to lose you, and I wouldn't want you to have to pay a 10% hike. So we are right in line along with what everybody, you know, with what our counterparts are doing. But 5% is a high tuition increase for us. We have really been working hard to stay at that, you know, 2.5%, 3% level. But this year, the 5% was definitely necessary to help us do that.
Mrs. Martinez, I think Hector Sandoval had a question.
Yes.
Oh yeah, can you hear me, Dawn?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so for the schools that are more reliant on annual funds, how hard were they hit by COVID? Because it's interesting because we rely a lot on event-driven, you know, fundraising. So were they hit as hard? I mean, I think it's good to see the examples of different ways that schools were affected.
Right. I have not heard that any, and maybe Danielle knows more because she talks with her advancement cohorts, you know, counterparts all the time. I have not heard that annual giving in that way was really affected. I know it was not for us. We had an incredible year last year, and if yesterday was any indicator, we've had a great year again this year. So I think that people who can give are wanting to give, but you're right, it's that event-based stuff that really got hit the hardest. Danielle, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, other than no other that I'm aware of, as far as in our counterpart cohort, no other school has an event like Fiesta that brings 2,000 people to campus, that sells, you know, over $100,000 in raffle tickets. You know, that's a day-long carnival in terms of that magnitude. So they didn't necessarily feel that pinch because they have prepared themselves to bring in the bulk of their money through the annual funds, and then have, like, for instance, St. Vincent de Paul, they were doing a very small virtual raffle with like 4 items, and they were high ticket prices starting at maybe $100 or something like that. Most of the high schools also are transitioning all of their virtual or their events, their big ticket events, to virtual events. Only one that I know of, St. Agnes, is actually having an actual in-person event outside, tented, etc. However, it was very tentative still. They were going forward with those plans, but we're given the numbers, it was looking more and more likely that people were pulling out. So I think we've really had to, as an advancement community, we've really had to buckle down and engage in or initiate that letter writing campaign, the annual fund ask, etc. Because that's where the strength in fundraising for schools lies right now. I mean, it's minimal overhead and directly impacts, you know, the community. Did that answer your question, Hector?
And definitely, you know, the last slide on this really talks about what is going on in the world of advancement. And really, Danielle, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'd rather you talk about this because Danielle does such an amazing job sending the message of why it's so important. So will you do it, Danielle?
Of course. For me, it's easy. I mean, I essentially live St. Anne, and it's easy for me because I'm a parent here first. And so I saw the vision as a parent and became motivated through the mission. And I've had 4 kids come through school here, or 3 currently, 1 a graduate, and he's at a boarding school in Boston, and it's one of the best schools in the country. And I, you know, tell people, why did he choose to go there? I don't know. I have no idea. But you know what? He was confident because of the academic experience that he had here at St. Anne, and he was spiritually motivated and confident in that way also, because I think he knew that he had just the community supporting him. And I think that came from, of course, his experience at St. Anne. My husband also came to school here. So this is essentially not only our spiritual home, but I mean, I left at 6 o'clock yesterday, so our second home. But when I walk around the hallways, I see St. Anne in action. I see the teachers with their carts going from classroom to classroom, and I can't imagine what it's like for them to take a mobile office and be moving all day long to different classrooms to teach, their students, but they're doing it for the safety of the community, for the safety of themselves, and so that they can continue what they're so very passionate about, which is, of course, living the mission of St. Anne. I'm extremely proud to talk about the good works of what we do here. And I think despite the challenges of this year, we've got a good grasp on of course, building community. Our PTO is extremely engaged in helping us do that, and we're very grateful for that. But also in making sure that what we can offer is some kind of a normal experience. We're starting this year with a theater residency that begins today for our 5th through 8th grade students. And slowly but surely sports is beginning, and we've also opened that up to our 5th grade students. So now 5th through 8th grade students are going to be able to play. It's soccer. Our girls softball team, I'm so pumped about that because my 2 girls are softballers, and to have them suited up in green with big shamrocks on, I just cannot wait. And then we have a volleyball conditioning. So I think I noticed a change yesterday, I think at Giving Day when all of the people were outside, the Honor Society was there with signs, the cheerleaders are on the track suited up, teachers are suited up, and the kids getting out of the cars, their faces were like, what's going on? Where are all these people coming from and what's happening? And I think I like this. This feels good. Everyone got out of the car with a big smile, and that is contagious. That is why I think the annual fund is successful, and I think the annual fund has potential to be more successful because we have such a very generous community. And I could preach for days. I mean, honestly, and I'll be here for the next 25 years since my younger one is in 3rd grade. So you've got me locked in, Dawn.
Woo! It's a good day. It's a good day at St. Anne's.
Right.
Not everybody knows this, but when Danielle and I first started working together, I was doing Danielle's job. I was the advancement person, and Danielle was the parent who said, let me help you with this and let me get the word out. And the work that she and Tom did that initial year that we started the annual fund was, I thought, incredible. And I thought, I don't know how this is ever going to get any better. I had no idea after that Danielle would come to work and do the job. And it is even better than what it was then. But it's such a great feeling and such a great experience for all of our families to really see, where this can go. And as early childhood parents, I think that's so important for you to see, because this is your home for a long time, and I'm on the other end of Danielle's spectrum, right? I mean, my children are alumni of here, and I love this school, both as, an employee of the school, but as a parent of the school, as a parent of alumni now. And so I think it's so important to see, and, I don't mean to sound sappy, but I see it in my grown children, right? I have one in college and one that has already graduated college and is, working in the workforce. And to hear them still say, oh, Mr. Beck taught me that. Oh yeah, no, we knew all about that. Miss Reynolds taught me that. I still use Miss Reynolds' book in my journalism classes to make sure that my grammar is spot on. Or Miss Flaherty saved my butt in college algebra. To see that my children, at least, and I know that so many others of their friends and everything feel the same way. The foundation that has been set for them is immense, and it's going to help them succeed as we go on. So I'm so grateful that you have found St. Anne's and you consider it a home, and that's why we want to make sure that we have everything we need to offer them that kind of education. And I definitely think as parents, I'm sure that you all feel the same way too. We want to make sure, this is why you chose this sacrifice of sending your children to Catholic schools, because you want them to have all the skills they need spiritually, academically, socially, to really have a good, solid foundation, so that when they get out in the world, they're going to be okay, because there's really no greater feeling than that out there. So Danielle, one thing we wanted to do was do you remember, we wanted to kind of point out who on this call is from school board and the annual fund leadership team. Do you still want to do that? So people can know that if you have questions, you can always ask me and Danielle. But if you have questions that you think of later, or you want to ask somebody else, there are some key people on here that I know would be happy to help you learn more about any of those things.
Yeah, a committee of the school board, the advancement committee led by Joy Mayfield, and I'm a co-member of the committee. We decided to really take annual fund to another level, which is why you received emails from parents. So the idea was to create a parent leadership committee of the annual fund, and these parents were gracious volunteers to help me get this program off and running. But the idea was to give a really targeted, focused, and intimate engagement experience with the annual fund by classmates, by parents of your students' classmates, and have that message come out, so that however you hear from St. Anne, be it my messages, be it Mrs. Martinez's messages, be it social media, etc., that you're getting voices speaking to you about the importance of the annual fund from many different platforms. And so that's why you've gotten an introduction email last week, and then of course reminder emails, and they'll be continuing to engage you in different ways as we strategize going forward and meeting 100% participation, and of course growing our final number for this fiscal year. But it's really important for me, because I don't want to be the only one asking for your support. I need buy-in from you all, and how better else can you ask for it by having, a team surrounding you of parents who understand the importance. So with that, I'm gonna just introduce some of the school board members on this call. And I see Hector Sandoval and Joy Mayfield. If anyone else is on here and I don't see you very quickly, please say hello. I don't see anyone else. Which kind of leads me to the next just point of issue or concern is we have discernment coming up for school board. And if you feel called to join this great team of individuals, and it's not just parents, we have parishioners as well, please consider it. It's a wonderful process to go through, but it's an even more rewarding process to serve. The information is located on FAQs under the announcements section, and Mara Towers, who's a parent in elementary school, she is the discernment chair, and you can reach out to her for more information. And there are several members here from the Parent Leadership Committee. I see, let's see, Ashley Cuevas. I also saw Laura Schneido. And if you're interested in joining this committee, to fundraise, I know not everyone is comfortable with asking for money, but really we wanted the focus to be on asking for participation, because if you get the ask to participate from a classmate, you're more likely to give of your time, talent, and treasure. So really that's been the focus and the theme for that. Please let me know if you're interested in participating, because we could use all of the help that we can get.
Are there any questions that I can answer for you or attempt to answer for you, especially regarding finances or anything else that's kind of burning in your mind, since I know we really focused on finances this time?
I have a question.
Hey, Stephanie, I see you.
Hi. You were talking about the student turnover and enrollment. I was just wondering, how has this impacted the faculty? Are you finding that teachers they're uncomfortable teaching in this kind of environment, or maybe not wanting to do it again next year after it's been so terrible? How are the teachers doing?
It's a great question. I think the teachers are doing well. When I check in on them, they seem okay. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with, we have been able to give them so much support in other ways. and I know this sounds weird, but not every school provides PPE for the teachers. We've made sure we do that. We tried to lessen their schedule as much as we could so that it wasn't, we tried to take away a lot of the busy work on the teaching side of things, right? So that it's not as much, we don't have as many things that you need to turn in or things that you need to do outside of just being really present with the teachers. Obviously, we've tried to make sure that all of our technology is state of the art and working and up to date so that teachers feel good about it. And then lastly, we try to do some fun things. We've got a food truck coming for them for lunch tomorrow, just to treat them to something. So we've tried to do quite a bit with it. I will say I feel like the most blessed person in the world. We had barely any turnover this year, which was great. We have not done our letters of intent for next year, but usually I hear rumblings and I haven't heard too many. So I'm glad to hear that that's what's going on. I think as we started to get more and more in person, that made the teachers more and more comfortable. And so as you know, it was the hardest when we were balancing, or when they were balancing, let's be honest, you know, almost a full class online and a full class in person. But now that it's kind of like a 90-10 split with 90% of the kids being in person, it seems to have loosened up a little bit and lessened the burden on the teachers.
Right. Well, are you looking for an assistant principal? I mean, how are you doing all this without somebody helping out?
So, honestly, I have an incredible team with Danielle Aleman, Erica Cole, Margaret Flores, and Ashley Tatoris. We have been a really amazing team. It has forced us to look at how we're going to redesign administration for next year. And so we're looking at some different things. One thing I feel like I've learned for sure at St. Anne's, probably over my 20 years, but even more so this year, is that we don't necessarily do things like everybody else does it, but we do what works for us. And that's what I'm looking for, is what's the right team of people to make it work for us. And man, if I end up hitting myself, you'll know why. I don't think we have very many discipline problems. Please, Lord, don't let them all fall down, you know, the next 2 days, right? But for the most part, that's not where we need the extra attention. And so we're looking at some things of rearranging a couple positions so that everybody has the support they need, but at the same time, we're able to continue to grow our school in the way we want it to, whether it's, you know, we've got a strategic plan that has a lot more activities for students and a lot more options for academics as we get higher in the grades. And so we want to really focus on those. And for that, I don't know that I need an assistant principal, but I do need the incredible team I have with me right now.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Don, I might have missed this. Is this information you presented going to be available to parents?
Sure. You're asking if I can put it like on the website or something?
Yeah, I think it helps just, you know, for some parents that are more, you know, analytical and quantitative in nature. I'm not one of them, but, you know, some of them are. So, you know, it's always good to see where your dollars are going, you know.
Yes.
So I think it's a big, in my opinion.
Absolutely. A lot of this information is also in the annual report as well. So you probably saw it. I know I got one mailed to my home, and then you can also find that on the website, but we'll make sure this is up there too, just so, especially in the coming days, if you remember something, or you just want to take a look at Keith Wolf's amazing V chart again, which I know happens frequently. You'll have it at your fingertips. He may really have to trademark this sooner rather than later.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I think maybe putting in the annual fund page would be good, because that way, you know, you're getting to see where your money's going.
That's
Yeah.
That's a great point. Ashley Cuevas just said something about she loves having Miss Goodman there for discipline concerns too. I do too. Miss Goodman is really great, especially with the, well, she's great with all kinds of students, but it's really nice for us to remember that discipline is not always about doing something wrong. It's often about teaching. I mean, that is where the word comes from. It's an education. And so if we need to help students have a different approach to something, I think Ms. Goodman is great for that. And I will tell you, back to Stephanie's question, she has been instrumental in providing the teachers, you know, with tools for meditation, tools for mindfulness, things to just help them and the students to really get through the crutch of this year.
And she's not just supporting, only supporting behavioral issues. I mean, there's so many different layers that our kids are experiencing right now. I mean, they're learning in the middle of a global pandemic. And then of course there's, you know, things that are going on in individual kids' houses with parents and deaths with close family members, etc. So she's got a tremendous job and she's handling it really well and making sure that everyone is aware of our students and we're all checking in with each other. And then of course with the students as well. Robert sent me privately, I hope he's okay with me sharing this, but I thought it was a really good question. But he said if the annual fund really jumped to a level of other schools that you mentioned, what could that do for St. Anne Catholic School beyond offsetting tuition needs? Oh. Is there a greater goal that might get more families on board with bigger dedication?
Wow, that is a really great question. Robert, you're making like my dreams, you know, blow out of there. Really, I feel like we would be able, my biggest thing would be that we would be able to offer more services to students. And I mean that in terms of, for instance, you know, Miss Pena is a one-woman show in the Learning Resource Center. With more money to support some of the things we need, I would love to have another teacher in there who handles the math, right? So we've got Miss Pena handling the students who are struggling with ELA and somebody else who are helping and being able to give support to those students who need some assistance in math. At the early childhood level, we would love to be able to have a little bit more focus on some of the things that early childhood students need. So for instance, you guys know Mrs. Moreno is, we love her and we love what she teaches in Spanish and technology, but it's a really hard job to balance both of those. And it would be great if we had somebody who was dedicated to teaching in the early childhood some more of those things. So for me, that's the first place it goes. I don't want it to sound like it would all be for more staff, but it would lessen the burden of some of the staff that are stretching themselves and allow us to hire some more specialized people. And then I think some of the other things it would allow us to do would be to do some of the facilities improvements that are needed. It's a huge bone with me. The school board knows I've been so like, can we please get these bathrooms remodeled? I don't think they've been redone since 1956 and they need an upkeep, but it would be great to have some more restrooms or some real outdoor eating space for the kids. So man, you could really get me started on what we would do. But the other part of it that I think, you know, we want to be realistic about is we're always making sure that we are paying our faculty members a fair and just. And right now, I really pride myself, or all of us, I shouldn't say myself, because it's the school board, it's everybody who makes sure that we are at between 90 and 95% of HISD's salaries for their teachers. And that takes money to keep up with that. You know, especially when you never know. Sometimes you'll hear in the news HISD's considering like an 8% salary increase. That would knock us on our feet if if something like that were to happen. And I don't, I don't want to say, thank goodness they don't ever follow through with it, but we can handle a 3% increase, when we raise tuition. But with some of that annual fund money, if we were up around higher levels, we could make sure that we're able to keep up with salaries and benefits where they are. This year, one of our saving graces was that the diocese did not raise the amount of money that we need to contribute significantly to benefits for the teachers. There have been some years that it's been as much as a 13% hike, and it just blows our budget out of the water. This year we were blessed that it was a 2% hike. And so things like that we would really be able to keep up with that.
I'd have to add also, in terms of just continuing to help our parents understand the importance of the annual fund, but also explain that it's not necessarily a visionary fundraising initiative. The annual fund helps us sustain our day-to-day operations from year to year. But what we can do, and this is with respect to Robert's question, is if we reach a certain goal and we keep on going, how can we offset, other things other than tuition? What we can do is create an endowed teacher's chair for English or language, et cetera, and that would help offset some of our salary expenses. We can name the science lab in honor of a major gift, and that can help offset science resources and technology, et cetera. Or have a named library sponsor or major gift, so that that gift in particular focuses on everything that the library needs to be an educational resource to the school. That's where we should be taking our advancement efforts at St. Anne's, so that we have a diversified advancement initiative, one with the annual fund that handles the day-to-day needs of the school and allows us to remain flexible and thrive, but also for the future. I mean, we should be building our future initiatives and advancement to help offset the salary costs and whatnot.
And I think, Danielle, too, I'm so glad you said that. I would be remiss if I didn't say, obviously, we would want to make sure that we continue to fund our tuition assistance at the level at which we have become accustomed. Tuition assistance is such an important part of who we are in maintaining the culture of St. Anne's. And I don't ever want to get to a point that I completely rely upon the bourse to do that. We've been very blessed to keep that going. But to me, that is such an important part of who we are, making sure that our tuition assistance is healthy and robust, and that we can always help more and more families.
Yeah, and Kenneth made a great comment about focusing more on the annual fund as opposed to a raffle, because it would be less for overhead costs, and that because we're a 90-year-old school that we should be setting the example. And if other schools that are similar raise 2 to 3 times with their annual fund, we should be looking at ways to enhance that. And can I hire you? Are you available? Do you want to join the parent leadership committee? Okay, great. I know how to find you.
The reason I say that is that, being a new parent, I'm like, I didn't realize where all the money came from, right? I think we sign on as a parent, we get our kid in there, we're happy to get him in there, we're like, there you go, you have them. And we don't think about all of that other stuff, right? And so I think if we knew that, and then if we have like 36 new families coming in every year, it's like, do they not know this until 5th grade, right? I don't know, but I know where I work, we're a zero debt company as well. So what we do, it's probably the only real estate company that does that. We pay our bills at the end of the month and we're zero debt. And so we do look at expenses and we look at what we're doing, but we never take the money away from our staff, right? Because they're the ones that lead the charge. So where do we cut? And the cut would be like, do we need to have this? We spend $200,000 on Fiesta, but we make $50,000, right? I mean, it's great for the party and the celebration, but is there other things you can do? And I'm just thinking like it's getting my creative juices flowing of what could we do to be more purposeful about it, right?
Kenneth, you can join the school board. That's precisely what the advancement committee has been working on, and how to help educate our parents better. And that's, I mean, to be very honest, I mean, that's something that we've been discussing since last year, and how best to show and present this information to our parents. Is it a flyer? Is it a brochure? Is it on the website? Like what channels, what types of information, what methods are most effective for everyone? I think we can all agree that these coffee chats, and hopefully next year we can have them in person, but I mean, we have really seen a great turnout with the number of attendees. And so it's been helpful, and help, you know, of course, Mrs. Martinez and myself in spreading information. So we need help. Yeah, and it's great that you all come from different industries and different professional experiences, and all of that contribute to just enriching the discussion.
It's so important too. I love to see this group in particular, because you are the early childhood parents. And I don't want to say we feel like we missed the boat on the older ones. We know we still need to educate them, but if we can get early childhood parents to understand this while they're still early childhood parents, I think we have a much better chance of engaging you as a parent, and engaging your whole family in every way for your entire time here. And thank goodness, you know, I mean, our retention rate is so good, because most people, when they come to St. Anne's in pre-K3, their goal is to stay here through 8th grade. That's what most people are looking for, and that's what we want too. So if we can engage you for those entire, oh, see, this is why I'm not a math teacher, like 11 years that you're here, or 12, that's exactly what we want.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's about to be 9:30, and I want to be respectful of your time, because we've all got a full day. And just a quick reminder that if you haven't supported the annual fund yet, because just too many things going on, it's never too late to make your donation. We're fundraising through the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th. I'm going to be busy reconciling numbers and whatnot. So as soon as we get firm numbers, I'll be able to communicate that with you all. But thank you for joining us. This is recorded. I'm going to post it on Fax, and probably just email it to everyone as well in early childhood. I know there was some miscommunication. Maybe some of you didn't get the link to the Zoom, so I apologize for that. But it'll be here. And then, of course, if you would like to join 1st through 4th grade tomorrow, or junior high on Friday, that's always an option for you all too. And that information is located on Fax as well. So thank you so much for joining us. It was so nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great day. Happy
Sure.
Catholic Schools Week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.